Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to What Women Want. I'm your host, Carol Ganser, and as we start marking down the time, the last few days that we have left in 2012, we have more than half of the month left, but I want to start talking about things that we need to be thinking of. And my guest today is one of those things we need to be thinking about. Judith Eugene is with me, and she is the founder of the Loving Hands Group, and they provide stress relief for individuals, particularly caregivers, people that are caregivers. I've talked about this before when I've discussed long-term care issues. A lot of the baby boomers or people in their 40s and 50s may be taking care of a sick or elderly parent. They also have children that they still have at home or children at college that they're looking out for, and they're sandwiched. So they go nonstop and they don't get much of a break, and that's where Judith comes in. Hi, Judith. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for having me on today.
So tell us a little bit about the Loving Hand Group. Tell us what it does, first of all.
We provide life enrichment classes and activities to senior adults and people with physical and mental challenges all over the greater Cleveland area. And we work with people in their homes or in group living communities, senior centers, wherever the people are, we bring the activities to them. And we're a group of professional artists and holistic healthcare practitioners. So we have classes and activities and therapies and really neat things like art, architecture, interior decorating. We do, on the holistic healthcare side, we do massage, Reiki, yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, and one of the talks that I've been giving that's becoming increasingly popular is called Making Lemonade from Lemons, and this is where the stress release ideas have come from, because seniors and people with disabilities are facing a lot of challenges with their bodies and their minds.
Yeah.
And as I'm beginning to work with these folks and getting to know their caregivers, I'm realizing that the advice or the tools that I'm giving to these folks also really can help the caregivers at the same time.
Definitely applicable.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. And interestingly enough, a large majority of the caregivers are women. With the seniors, it's the adult daughters, or it's, with folks that are disabled, it's mothers taking care of children that have challenges. So a lot of women, and that's why I was really happy to have me come on the show today to help any of your audience that might be facing this.
So tell us some of the things that you offer and do.
So we're talking about stress, and as you mentioned earlier, when you're caring for an aging or a sick or a disabled relative, the potential for stress is everywhere, but I chose those words carefully. Potential is the operative word there. Whether we allow it to manifest as stress is really up to us. It's a decision. And so the tools that I'm going to talk about today help us to really maintain our peace and balance on the inside, no matter what's happening on the outside.
That's a trick.
It is. And so more and more women who aren't healthcare professionals, as you mentioned, are finding themselves in this role just by default. They're not trained. They don't have the resources usually when they start out. There are resources available, but they just are kind of figuring these things out as they go along. So that just has a potential for causing a lot of stress, and there's a never-ending to-do list. As you mentioned, there's a term for it, the sandwich generation.
Right. And never ending is right, because even though you may finish up your obligation with the person you're taking care of, you go home to the same situation as far as responsibilities go at home.
Exactly.
It doesn't end. You're lucky if you get 6 hours of sleep.
Right. Because exactly between your spouse, your significant other, your children, some have grandchildren, the pets, the house, the laundry,
it's a lot.
It doesn't stop. So, but first, I think it's important to really acknowledge what a wonderful thing it is that caregivers are doing, really giving of themselves. It's an absolutely wonderful thing, every last ounce of energy, to be a real lifeline for your loved one. And they are the understanding face that you see every day as the caregiver. And that is so important that they can it's really common for them to get very frustrated about what's happening with them. So to have that familiar face, that family caregiver, is really, really important to their overall health. So it's such a wonderful thing to do for people if you can. But even though it's beautiful and noble, as we said, it can take a really heavy personal toll.
It does. It brings on a lot of stress, and it can bring on mixed emotions. My mother-in-law died a year ago in November, was in a nursing home for 3 years. Prior to that, she was at home with us helping her for about 2 years. And it gets very hard. It's sometimes hard to remember she's got dementia, and it's sometimes hard to remember that that's not her, that's the illness. And, you know, it takes a toll on whoever that person is, because you have to always try to remain happy or, you know, not get mad, and that's a real talent if you can do that.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, that's a good point. The dementia and Alzheimer's disease adds a whole other level of potential stressors onto an already really tough situation. So as women, as caregivers, we tend to hold this world on our backs, this world of responsibilities. And why do we do it? Because we have to. We really just do. And we keep going and we take care of others because we have to. But what's important for us to start to realize is to start taking care of ourselves in the same way, and with the same sense of urgency also. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we won't be any good for the folks that we're trying to also then help.
And one of the things that I say with my with long-term care, when I talk to people, oftentimes the caregiver, if they don't take care of themselves, gets sick, and at times can be the first one to pass away. If not the first one, a lot of times they go immediately, not immediately, but soon thereafter, because they're worn out. Right. You know, they've given everything. So,
and sometimes you don't realize that you're burning yourself out.
Oh yeah,
because you just keep going and going. So that's a really good thing to talk about, is how we can take care of ourselves amidst all of this, and how we can do it on a holistic level, our bodies, our minds, and our spirits, because we are holistic organisms. So the first part of this is that it's okay to give yourself permission to be a little bit selfish. You have to be, and I think the word selfish sometimes gets a bad rap.
Right.
But it's super healthy to take care of ourselves, to set personal boundaries, and to be able to say, you know, yes, I'm a caregiver, I'm a mother, I'm an employee, I'm a spouse, but I'm also a person, and I need to do some things to take care of myself in a healthy way in order to be able to take care of everyone else on my list.
Right, because if you aren't healthy, and if you don't have your sanity, you know, all your wits about you, and if you're running on with a few cylinders misfiring because you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be any good to anybody else, really. Right. And if you have a job on top of everything else, and you're not functioning well at work, and you and your family need that job to, you know, get through life, you could lose that job. I mean, sometimes employers are understanding, but let's face it, you can only do so much because they have responsibilities with whatever the job is. So.
Right, and you have obligations to fulfill. So yeah, absolutely, it can have a domino effect through your entire life. So one of the easiest ways to counteract stress is actually laughter. They say laughter is the best medicine, and that's the truth. Getting together with friends who make you laugh, watching funny movies. And there's also a cute little trick that you can do if you have a pen or even your finger. Just put your finger or a pen in your mouth. You'll notice that you have to curl up the edges of your mouth to do that. It's kind of like a fake smile. And interestingly enough, your brain doesn't know the difference between a fake smile and a real smile. So if you're having a really tough day, put your finger in your mouth, put a pen in your mouth, turn up the corners of the mouth, and the brain will just notice that you're using those muscles, and it will release relaxation hormones just automatically. Wow. It's called dopamine. That's our relaxation chemical. So it's a great way. Laughter just is really good for breaking a cycle too, and we feel like we're just in our head spiraling out of control with worries and things like that. Laughter is just a great way to just sort of break that cycle. Plus, with your finger or your pen in the mouth, you probably just laugh at yourself because you're being silly anyway. So
doing this, yeah. You're wondering. You know, I have to tell you this. One of the things that I do sometimes, well, a lot, if I'm really anxious or I'm having a rough day, just like what you're talking about, and there are a slew of things that you can find on YouTube that will make you laugh. But there's one quick one I shared with people the other day, and it's a lady cooking crabs for the first time. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No.
If you have not seen it, people out there listening, Google lady cooking crabs. And it will pop up, and if you don't laugh from that, there's something wrong. So I do that a lot, and it's only like about not even a minute. You know, it's just quick, and I will get a rip-roaring belly laugh from it. I don't care how many times I've seen it. I see something different every time I look at it. So yeah, you're right, and it does not only does the dopamine get released and to feel good, but because that was released, my finding is I'm in a better frame of mind the rest of the day.
Right. You don't feel as bad as you felt before you did that.
And it would take a lot to get me back to that. So good. I'm glad you brought that up. So I never knew that the brain doesn't know the difference.
Yep. Another tip I always try to give caregivers is that a lot of times, and it's a noble thing, but a lot of times a big mistake that gets made is to try to do everything themselves and to not reach out for help. Things just have to get done. We feel like they have to get done quickly, feel like no one else is going to do them. So it's a big mistake to assume that no one else can or would want to help. Because as in all of our interpersonal relationships, we're not going to get what we need if we don't ask. So the first thing I recommend caregivers do is to spend a week writing down everything that they do every day, whether it's caring for themselves or someone else, anything that's not, fun or pastime. Write down every task that you do for a week, and then put a little check mark by the things that you could possibly hand off to someone else. You don't have to figure out who that's going to be just yet, but who you possibly could. There will be some things that only you can do or that you will need to start, someone else can finish, something like that. But once you do that, then ask for help and start with your family, your closest family. Let them know what you're doing. Say, hey, I'm really stretched thin. I could really use some help. It's advised that you do this at a time when you're not stressed out and overwhelmed or mad at anybody.
Right. That wouldn't be good.
No. So call a special meeting, have this list, maybe write them on index cards, pass them around, let people choose what they would like to help you with. That tends to be a little more successful than assigning tasks to people. If people can choose, they're more likely to take ownership of it and follow through. And then if there are still some gaps, if the family can't pick everything up for you, start to turn to neighbors and friends. People really love to help when they have the time and they can and they have the resources. You're really giving them a gift to let them help you.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now, and we will be back to find out more ways that we can help ourselves in everything, but especially if we feel crunched because of the tasks at hand for us. You're listening to What Women Want on the Talk of the Town, AM 1330 WELW. Welcome back to What Women Want. For those of you just joining, I have with me in studio Judith Eugene, who is the founder of the Loving Hand Group. And she's been talking about how important it is for caregivers, as well as the people that they're taking care of, to learn how to take care of themselves and de-stress themselves. Because even if you're not taking care of anybody but yourself, if you're working, taking care of a house or whatever, and you have yourself to worry about, there is stress involved in every aspect of life. I don't care what you're doing. Some of us deal with it better than others. So that's what we're talking about, how we can do things for ourselves. But I want to ask you, before we go back to it, Judith, how did Loving Hand Group get started?
It started about 3 years ago. There were a series of things that happened in my life that just sent my career path in a different direction. I started facing, just so happened, a lot of loss, and so this talk about stress actually comes from my personal experience. So my mother passed away very quickly. We were very close, and it was really a sudden shock for me and my family. I ended up going through a divorce. My cat, 16-year-old cat, developed a brain tumor, and I had to make the decision for the first time in my life to euthanize an animal. That was really tough. I ended up getting laid off from my job, and then
it was
losing
like
my
the domino
house.
effect that you're talking about.
That was the domino effect, yeah. And so I am intimately related to stress. I have intimate knowledge of it, and these tools that I'm offering today are things that have helped me get through it. So I have put them to the test and seen what they can do.
So just so I can clarify, it's not just you. There are other people involved with your group. That's why it's called the group.
Right.
So if you could just tell me real quick, and then we'll go back to what we were talking about. How many people and what therapies or what do they bring to the groups?
There are 5 of us right now in the group. My skills, feel very fortunate that I have a lot of things to offer folks, different classes, activities, and therapies. So my past history is that I'm an architect and interior decorator. I have 25 years of experience with that work. So I teach classes in architectural history. I teach people interior decorating, no matter whether they live in an apartment or a house. I also do things with writing, help people write their life stories. Ethical wills are becoming very popular among the senior population. It's a document that you can kind of leave your legacy about who you are, what you believe in, why you believe in those things, the things that are important important
Pretty neat.
too.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's really neat. Have another gal in the group that does videography for us, so anybody that's having difficult writing their life stories, we can do it on video instead. I also do things with music, anything from sing-alongs to also doing musical autobiographies for people, putting together a little personalized CD of the songs that are special to them throughout their lifetime and the little stories that go with the songs. I'm a yoga teacher, so I have special training to teach folks, seniors and people with physical and mental challenges. I'm also a Reiki energy practitioner. So it's all related to the arts and holistic healthcare. We have a woman on our team who is a professional artist, does all kinds of really wonderful activities for people, no matter what their
art therapy?
ability. We're not trained therapists, so we shy away from calling it that. But things like art and music are so therapeutic.
Yes, they are.
In and among themselves, just doing the
People
programs are wonderful.
respond automatically.
They do. It brings people out of their shells. I did a music program the other day at a nursing home, and a lot of the folks were just non-responsive until the time when I started singing, and they just came alive because it strikes a chord. It strikes some memories with people, and so it's just wonderful, the things that can touch them. We have another gal in our group who does Tai Chi, so she also has training to work with people at all levels of ability, as well as massage therapy. So
that's important to me. Massage therapy, besides everything else you're talking about, everybody should treat themselves at least once a month if you can, and get a massage to relax those muscles. Because even though you might think, I'm okay, there's nothing wrong, I guarantee you, if a person with skilled hands were to walk up and grab a hold of your shoulders, they would feel the tension in there. Because you might think you're okay, but your muscles give it away.
Yeah, you tend to carry it in certain places. Yeah, and plus just giving yourself, besides the physical benefits of it, massage can be really holistic in that you're just giving yourself permission to just get away from your to-do list for an hour, to treat yourself special, as we were talking about earlier. Take care of yourself, and that's an important little cognitive milestone for a lot of people.
How do you find, or how do your clients find you?
A lot of different ways. Google, thank goodness for Google.
Right.
We have a website that we've spent a lot of time developing, and it has all of our programs. We have over 70 different classes and activities and therapies, so we've spent a lot of time developing the website. I go around just talking to a lot of assisted living places, nursing homes, senior centers. We have our most difficult segment of the population to reach are the people living at home. It's easier to go and kind of knock on the door and say hello if it's a business that takes care of these folks, but it's a little harder to reach folks at home, so I do appreciate your radio show for that.
Oh, absolutely.
And reaching the home caregivers.
Now, I will say this, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there are, there's senior centers all over. But I'm from the Highland Heights area, and they have an organization for seniors. It used to be called Tri-County Senior Consortium, and they meet one week it's Highland Heights, another time it's South Euclid, Mayfield Heights, those sorts of things. But I could see how it would be valuable for them to know about what you have to offer, to get that in their brochures, because they do provide information for the seniors of things that are out there and that are available. So if you haven't done that, that's something to think about.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're a good group.
They are a very good group, and they do fulfill a big service to help the caregivers, because they provide transportation for people to go shopping. They'll take them shopping, which can give the caregiver a break.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's a good thing to know about. And let's stay on this for a minute, because we'll be going to a break here shortly. But the other thing that you were talking about, helping other people and doing, maybe making index cards of things that other people can help you with. A lot of people feel they can't ask somebody else to help them, and it's their burden. And I have to tell you how false that is. That's kind of a selfish thing. Even though that might sound backwards, other people a lot of times do want to help. They see the stress that you're going through. They understand it. Whether they understand it completely or not, they see you running from morning to night. Let them help you. Right. If they ask, and even if they don't ask, I bet you if you would say to people, I really need some help with Joe, whoever it is you're taking care of or, looking out for. Would you be able to help me if I made a list of things for you to look at to see if anything in there is something you could step in for? Because I'm really worn out. I got to tell you, I think people, if they're your loved ones, your family, your friends, they'll step up to the plate. But they can't do it if they don't know about it.
Exactly.
So we need to make that aware to people. And I promise when we come back after this break, we are going to go back into more of the Loving Hand Group and the things that they do and how great of an organization this is. Again, Judith is with us. She's going to tell us about her organization, some more about the Loving Hand Group. Judith.
Thank you, Carol. So our group, our organization was founded around the idea, the drive, the desire to help these segments of the population, the senior population, people with physical and mental challenges, to help them feel empowered. So part of our business model is that we are all professionals at what we do. So we all have 20 plus years of experience doing what we do. And the reason for that is we don't want to just come in and entertain people on a short-term basis. We really want to come in and educate, empower with new knowledge. So whether it's a new skill, whether it's just learning about something you never knew before, or whether it's actually taking on a new type of exercise program that you never thought you could do. It's all about helping people to realize that they are still valuable and interesting and productive no matter what they're facing.
Right. That's great. That's great that you do that. What other, we were talking about the different things that you offer. What else?
Gosh. Well, all related to the arts and holistic health care. So our artist does a lot of really neat things. We try to do some different things too. Being that that's on the professional level, it's more than just doing a craft kit with someone, doing something really interesting, she does one thing with acetate, drawing on acetate. So acetate is a clear plastic. So they find a picture that they like, they can trace over it with the acetate, and then there's some really neat ways to paint that and create your own spin on that kind of picture. Or we do painting with tissue paper, different colored pieces of colored tissue paper, where you can do that with glue and then start adding layers of different paint and ink over the top. And one thing that's really important that we always do is we guide people through the process, but we don't have predetermined outcomes. So this way everybody succeeds, no matter what they create is successful. There's no right or wrong. It's their personal expression. And it's amazing when these things happen, whether it's the art or the music or the yoga, people just, when they find something they can really relate to and they love and they do it, and it's something that only they could have done, it's just such an empowering feeling for folks that are facing these kinds of challenges in their lives. You know,
especially because if somebody's in a situation like that where, you know, they've got some issues, they've got some disabilities, and for them to create something, that's got to be a great self-esteem booster for them. I mean, because first of all, they probably thought they never could do it, you know, and then for you to empower them with that, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. So we were talking before the break about tendencies to be afraid to ask for help, and I think that that's very real, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of us feel that we're either imposing by asking for help, or we feel like a failure if we're asking for help.
Right.
But it's really good to realize that caregiver stress is a real thing. In fact, the Mayo Clinic actually has a definition for it. It's a very real thing. And they define it as the emotional and physical strain of caregiving. So it's very real. It's a national problem, and it's nothing to ever be ashamed of or feel that you need to bear the burden yourself. It's something that a lot of folks are dealing with, and it's really good to ask for help. And it can be caused by so many things. We've talked about that, being pulled in 100 different directions, feeling like you don't have help, not knowing where to turn for help. Also, there is help out there for caregivers, but sometimes these things sort of happen organically. You don't realize they're happening. All of a sudden, you're morphed into the role of caregiving, and you don't know yet where to reach out for the help. So, sometimes you feel like you just can't find the answers. And stress is a very real thing. Some just really exciting statistics. It can cause disease, headaches, insomnia, fatigue, anxiety, irritability, eating disorders. A whole gamut of things that if we keep ourselves under continual stress,
falls in there.
Absolutely, yeah, it does. And so the more stress you experience, the more vulnerable you become to these things, and that's because we talked about our brain chemicals, adrenaline and cortisol. We were designed only to have, those are our fight or flight chemicals.
Absolutely.
Our bodies were designed to only have those be released in short spurts when absolutely needed. But now if we are under continual states of stress, not just short bursts of stress, continual states of stress, and as you mentioned, that's just life. You know, caregiving is definitely stressful, but just life can be stressful. So what happens is that it actually then reduces our ability to release that dopamine, that happy chemical that we were talking about. So it's a very real physical issue.
Well, I will tell you this, I know this for a fact, that when it was for fight or flight, when it was released into your system, you burned it up. It was burned up. It was out of your system then.
Right.
We don't do that anymore, and so it's just sitting there inside, and it causes, I mean, it can lead to heart disease. It can lead to a lot of different things. I know that from studying fitness and stuff like that.
Right.
That's why they say it's so important that people, not only for your muscles to get some sort of exercise, but it burns off those things that are inside you, those chemicals that have been released.
Right, that were only meant to be temporary, right?
Right.
Yeah,
They're only meant to be there for a little bit, enough to get you out.
Right, exactly, to get you flighted out, yeah. So if we do start asking for help, we talk to our families and friends, and if for whatever reason they can't help us or they won't, or maybe there are just still some gaps that we need to fill, there are agencies that we can turn to also for help. A lot of different organizations, and we'll talk at the end of the show about a list that people can get if they would like to, that has a list of support groups. But religious institutions can often help. They often provide, just if you need someone to talk to, a lot of different assisted living places will offer respite care, where if a family wants to go on vacation but they're caring for the family member, they can put this person into respite care for just a week or 10 days or however long they're gone. Or if you just need a one-day break, oftentimes they'll just provide one-day respite care. So it's a wonderful service that's available that you can reach out to, you know, outside the family and friends circle for help. So we'll talk maybe now about some physical things that we can do to release stress
On our own?
On our own, yeah.
Absolutely.
Things that we can just do, start to make part of our lives.
Pay attention out there. We all need this.
And I hope people don't start rolling their eyes at me, but I'm going to tell you exactly what our mothers all told us: sleep, diet, and exercise.
It's the truth.
Moms were right. It is the truth. Regarding sleep, the Mayo Clinic recommends that adults, men and women, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and most of us don't. And what it does is we'll find that although we can function on less, we're not as efficient, we're not as alert, we're not as good at problem solving. So even though we might feel like we're gaining time by not spending that time sleeping, we're actually losing time in productivity. And I know from experience, my mother always preached that to me, and I was always the type that said, no, I can't get any more than 6 because I have stuff to do.
Right.
So I decided to try it, and for the last year I've been getting 8 hours of sleep a night, and I am amazed at the difference that it has made in my life. Like I said, I feel much more alert, much more easier to adapt to changing situations. I feel just like I'm more productive. So to me, that sleep, I try to get 8 hours a night. To me, that's an investment in my next day.
Right.
In making me as productive as I can. And a clear head will help you deal with stress a lot better. So there's real research behind it. People that get less than 7 hours of sleep a night tend to have higher mortality rates than people that don't. And again, that same old thing, if we burn ourselves out, we're not going to be any help to ourselves, much less the people that we're trying to take care of. So on to healthy eating. So the two answers that always come back when you talk to medical professionals about how to prevent illness or disease is diet and exercise. So diet is extremely important. It's important for physical strength, for our endurance, again, for thinking clearly, for keeping us out of the doctor's office. It's very preventive. But unfortunately, we do live in a society where unhealthy eating is faster and less expensive.
Readily available.
So it does take, I will acknowledge that it does take a little more time and effort to eat healthy, but the preventive benefits end up saving us time again, and it's an investment, ends up saving us time overall because we're out of the doctor's office and hospitalizations and things like that. And again, if you're not as sick as often, you'll have more energy and you're more productive. Ties right in with the sleep.
And when you're under a lot of stress, your immune system is impaired anyway because of the stress and all these chemicals we're talking about. So if you're not, one of the things you can do to help yourself from not getting quite as sick as often is take care of yourself with your food. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to What Women Want. And I want you to know how much I appreciate you joining me today and my guest, Judith Eugene from the Loving Hand Group. We're talking about ways that people can take care of themselves. This is the last segment, and Judith, I want you to get in as many things that you can that people can do for themselves.
Okay, will do. Well, we've been talking a lot about the physical things that we can do, but I think it's really important to also talk about the mental and emotional things that we can do to support ourselves as holistic beings. Stress is going to be around us all the time. So whether it's in our caregiving, our job, or our daily life, it's pretty much a fact of life. But the way that we handle it is what makes the difference between whether we just get through a day or we thrive and we're the best that we can do. So what is stress really? It's not an object. It's really something that's in our heads. It's worry. And worry is a choice. It's a state of mind. Being in a challenging situation is a fact, but what we do about that determines how well we can thrive, how we think and act in that situation. We may not be able to change the situation, but we can always change how we think and act in that situation. And we can learn to think and act in ways that are peaceful instead of stressful, no matter what's going on with us. And I use that period of time in my life as an example, extremely stressful, but the following tools that I found that helped me get out of that really helped me to believe that this can be applied to anyone in any kind of stressful situation. So one of the things that I recommend to folks is gratitude journaling. At the end of every day, write down 5 things that happened that day that you're grateful about. And once you start focusing on the things that you're happy about, a really positive shift takes place in your mind. The bad things still happen, but they tend to not seem as bad because you have in the forefront of your mind all the things in your life that you have to be grateful for. So you're actively aware of them. Another thing that I recommend that really helped me a lot is the power of positive thinking, and we've heard it referred to as the law of attraction. And it's, again, focusing, and it all has to do with our attitude and our focus. Focusing on what you do want in your life rather than what you don't want in your life. So there's a law of physics that states that there is a return of energy that gets sent back every time we send energy out. And our thoughts are actually energy waves. So it's important for us to think about what we do want rather than we don't want. So, for example, there's a difference between saying, I want more free time in my life rather than, I wish I didn't have so much stuff to do.
Right. Big difference.
You're saying the same thing, but by putting the positive spin on it, that's what you're sending out, those thoughts.
You're right.
And that ties right in with the power of positive language. I've been working really hard with myself on this for the last year and a half. Taking the following words out of your vocabulary: horrible, terrible, bad, and awful, and replace them instead with the word challenging. And I've also kicked the word problem out of my vocabulary.
It's a challenge. It's not a problem.
I use a challenge. And it's interesting what that little mind shift will do for you, because these negative words that we use can become like an oppressive blanket over us of things that cover us up, make us feel victimized, where the word challenge is more of an inspiring word that wants to make us rise to the occasion.
Well, the other thing is if you keep talking negative of yourself, you believe it.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's why you want to do the positive talk, because you'll believe that as well.
You'll believe that, so why not? Yep. And then the other thing that I like to recommend that's really helped me is to start the morning in some kind of quiet reflection, whether you call it prayer, you call it intentions, just getting from a mindset, starting with thank you. It's amazing what happens with you when you start from that mindset, and then just ask for help with what you're going to have to face that day. And it just does a lot of great things for you. And that, again, ties into meditation. Mm-hmm. Meditation has just been amazing for me in helping me to deal with things that come up. You know, it's one thing to sit and do meditation and to stay peaceful because you're in this peaceful, quiet room with candles and incense, and another thing to really be able to do that out in life. But once you practice that for a while, and you said that you practice meditation sometimes too, so there's a lot of different types of meditation. Find something that seems to make sense to you. But I think the idea of meditation tends to scare people. There's a bit of a myth that meditation involves clearing our minds of thoughts. It really doesn't. It just involves redirecting our thoughts when we have them.
Right, and just quieting down, because I don't know about you, but when I start thinking about all the things I have to do, my brain starts going in 50,000 different directions. Oh my God, I got to do this, I got to do that. It's just getting the calm within.
Right.
And it's a nice gift to give yourself.
And our thoughts are almost always about the past or the future.
They're not about right now.
They're not about right now.
You're
so
right.
Meditation brings us into that present moment, gives us a vacation from
it
our
does.
worries for even 5 minutes a day. Another thing that's been really wonderful for me is our rituals. Having some sort of structure and rhythm to your day, especially in the chaotic world of caregiving, can be really great for reducing stress. So I try to have a regular bedtime. I go to bed and wake up at the same time every day whenever possible. And then I developed a short ritual, and people can develop whatever feels good to them. Maybe you wake up 20 minutes before your family does, you make a cup of tea, you read from a book of daily meditations. It doesn't have to be long or involved, and then something else at bedtime too, to sort of be the bookends to your day. And they're very grounding because they're dependable, they're routine, they're familiar, and so they become very comforting and stress reducing because of that. So really good things to try to do. Yeah.
Good advice.
And then yoga. Yoga I love because it's not just a physical practice. It is very holistic. It helps us with our mental and emotional states as well. It benefits our bodies, our minds, and our spirits because we learn to be accepting of ourselves where we are. And that's really important for caregivers. We have to realize that we're not superhuman, that we can't do everything as much as we'd like to be able to. We just sometimes can't. And so yoga helps us to learn to be accepting of where we are in our physical practice with our poses and where we are as human beings in our journey through life. And so we also learn not to compare ourselves to others and not to judge others. And then just learning these calming breathing practices, and you usually do a short meditation at the end of yoga class. So
and it also, my understanding of yoga is that it also helps promote balance.
It does. Yeah.
Not just balancing the position, but the whole process of the breathing, the pose. It's all about balancing things within. So.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's such a wonderful metaphor for life. The physical we do our balance in our physical poses, and then it translates into balance in our lives. Really wonderful. And Reiki energy therapy, not a lot of people are familiar with Reiki.
Explain that a little bit.
I just happened to find it at this time in my life, and it became a tremendous help to me. But it's a holistic stress-reducing therapy. It's a gentle touch therapy that helps us to balance our energy centers, and it helps us to balance ourselves on the physical, mental, and emotional levels. So it's a one-on-one therapy. It's done on a massage table in a very relaxing environment. It usually lasts about an hour, similar to what a massage treatment would be. And the sessions are intensely relaxing, so it's really wonderful for stress reduction, and plus it provides physical healing at the same time for just myriad
with the energy
illnesses
flow.
And things, right. So gives us a lot of
now,
energy.
Is it always touch, or can it be just above the body?
It can be above the body. So for folks that can't be touched, people that are burn victims, for example, Reiki can be done in the area just above the body called the aura. Some people have an aversion to touch, and some older folks aren't used to it, so you can just do the Reiki near them, around them.
And they also have a lot of medical issues, like with pain, arthritic and stuff like that.
Exactly. So, so you have to be careful with that. Yeah. So I thought we'd talk about now how to handle stressful people that come into our lives, because they will add a whole other layer of stress onto what we're already dealing with. And so we know these people, they're either highly negative, or they're very selfish, or they're unreasonable, or they're just downright mean. There are just some people, unfortunately, that are that way. And so
they're miserable.
I offer people 3 steps to take when you're dealing with someone like this. The first is to see if you can get them to change. See if you can get them to stop what they're doing. Sometimes people just don't realize they're very self-centered. Sometimes folks just don't realize that what they're doing is affecting others. And also give the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes people can't read our minds. They don't know what we need or what they're doing. So the first step is to ask, just to ask. And if the person can't change or refuses to change, or sometimes there are people that we can't ask to change, like a boss.
Right.
We just need to accept. We have to close the door on lamenting over how they should be, how they could be, why they're not doing it the same way we would do it, and just accept what we cannot change. If we've already tried to change it, we cannot change it, we need to accept it. But that's not to say that we should ever subject ourselves to something that we need to endure whatever comes our way, because there is the third option of leaving the situation. And that happens if there is somebody that's just really unhealthy, really abusive, extremely negative people that are just dragging us down. We want to challenge ourselves to try to be as understanding as we can, as patient as we can, but we also need to realize our limits, just as we do in caregiving. So if we say, you know, I just can't handle this, then we just can't handle that. So we should challenge ourselves to do our best, but we may need to walk away, because the fourth choice of staying stuck and complaining, it's not a choice, it's a victim role, and we can do better than that.
Well, the other thing is we can, to add to this a little bit, we have control over our own peace. People don't realize that, but when somebody upsets us, we've allowed them to get inside our heads and take our peace away from us. We also have the ability to say, you know what, that's your issue. You know, you don't have to physically say that to them, but you can say that is their issue. I am not going to let it contaminate me.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on. And a lot of times if you take a deep breath when you're saying that, it helps a little bit.
Yep. Very true.
How can people reach you, Judith, if they want to get in touch with you to find out more or to get involved with your organization?
A couple different ways. We have a website, which is lovinghandsgroup.com. We have all our classes and activities listed there, and also you can click on the Caregiver tab at the top of the page, and there's a download button that you can press that'll have all these notes in it. Phone number also is the other way to reach, 216-408-5578, 216-408-5578, or www.lovinghandsgroup.com.
I want to thank you so much for joining me today, for bringing your message out, and I hope everybody got a hold of that, listen to it, tell people that you think could benefit from it to go to WELW.com tomorrow, pull up the archives, and they can listen to it for themselves. Please remember that there is no promise of a tomorrow. Tell the people today how much you love them. Give forgiveness to those that you've been denying forgiveness to, and make sure you keep God in your life. You'll be glad you did. Until next week, Carol Ganser, thank you for joining me on What Women Want on AM 1330 WLW.